It started like any other early morning in the Glen Park district of San Francisco on October 1st, 2013. At 10 in the morning, the neighborhood library welcomed its typical mix of casual readers, distant workers, and students. A young man with black hair and wire-rimmed glasses sat among them, apparently engrossed in his laptop screen. Few would have suspected that Ross Ulbricht, the architect of the $1.2 billion Silk Road digital black market, was actually an unremarkable 29-year-old. Very few people could have foreseen that his life would drastically alter in a matter of minutes. But before we dive in, some of the details in this story are disturbing and may not be suitable for all audiences, so viewer discretion is strongly advised. As always, remember to hit the like button, share the video, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to stay up to date with the channel. Alright, let's dive into the video. Ross William Ulbricht's path to becoming one of the most infamous people in internet history started outside of the computer sector in San Francisco. Ross was born in 1984 in Austin, Texas, into a middle-class family that valued education and self-reliance. He was a talented student who thrived at the University of Texas at Dallas, where he studied physics and had a special knack for science. His instructors recalled him as inquisitive and involved, constantly seeking to comprehend the basic laws regulating the natural world. Ross started to pursue topics outside of pure science during his time as a student. He came to the writings of libertarian economists such as Murray Rothbard and Ludwig von Mises, whose theories on individual liberty and free markets would have a significant impact on his outlook. His scientific training and his economic views will subsequently serve as the theoretical cornerstone of the Silk Road. Ross attended Penn State University to pursue graduate work in materials science and engineering after earning his bachelor's degree. He became more interested in philosophy during this time. His private diaries, which were eventually made public during his trial, depicted a young man debating important issues pertaining to economics, freedom, and the function of the state. He grew more and more certain that market intervention by the government was immoral, in addition to being ineffective. A number of technology advancements in the late 2000s made Ross's idea feasible. The first was the anonymous networking technology known as Tor, the Onion Router, which was first created by the US Navy. By directing users' traffic across a global network of servers, Tor made it practically difficult to track their online actions and enabled anonymous internet browsing. Bitcoin, which was introduced in 2009 under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto, was the second significant advancement. The ability to make financial transactions without the use of middlemen like banks or credit card firms was made possible by this innovative digital currency, which offered something never before possible. Because Bitcoin was pseudonymous, the identities of people engaged were kept secret, even though every transaction was publicly documented on the blockchain. Ross saw these technologies as the cornerstone of the ultimate free market experiment. He believed that by combining these, a marketplace might be established where individuals could buy and sell anything they want without interference from the government. Ross Ulbricht, who is currently back in Austin, started coding Silk Road in 2010 to get it started. He carefully considered the old trade routes that linked Asia with Europe and Africa while deciding on the name. This digital Silk Road would function as a marketplace that links buyers and sellers over great distances, much like its historical namesake. The technical difficulties were significant. Ross had to combine Bitcoin payments with Tor's anonymous networking, while designing an intuitive user experience that would appeal to a wide audience. Additionally, he put in place a review system akin to eBay's, which lets customers rank merchants and create reputation scores. In order to build trust in the anonymous marketplace, this functionality was essential. When the website first opened in February 2011, its basic tenet was that users could put anything for sale, with the exception of goods that would cause direct harm to others. At first, there were only a few listings on the website, most of which were for hallucinogenic mushrooms that Ross had personally cultivated in order to supply the market. However, news swiftly spread via Reddit communities and online forums. Ross changed his name to Dread Pirate Roberts, DPR, as the Silk Road expanded, a reference to the film The Princess Bride. In the movie, Dread Pirate Roberts is a title that is passed down from one person to another, but the real identity is kept a secret. This made the choice meaningful. This increased the site's mystique and allowed him plausible deniability. Ross was more than just a marketplace administrator under the DPR alias. He developed into a thought leader for the site's expanding user base. His forum contributions became manifestos on individual liberty, government overreach, and economic freedom. He presented the Silk Road as a revolution against governmental control over individual and economic decisions, rather than merely a marketplace. Silk Road was handling millions of dollars worth of transactions every month by the middle of 2012. Every sale generated a commission for the website, which ranged from 8% to 15% and was paid in Bitcoin. Ross's fortune increased considerably when the value of Bitcoin rose sharply. His Bitcoin assets were valued more than $28 million at one time. The success of the site was not overlooked. The article, "The Underground Website Where You Can Buy Any Drug Imaginable," which was published by Gawker in June 2011, made Silk Road widely known. Senator Charles Schumer called for a federal inquiry after reading the post, and the FBI, DEA, and IRS started investigating the website. The investigation encountered unheard-of difficulties. The secrecy of Tor and the pseudonymous nature of Bitcoin transactions rendered traditional law enforcement methods essentially ineffective. Agents were required to acquire new technologies and create original ways of investigation. They set up undercover profiles, pretended to be buyers and sellers, and closely monitored trends in how the website functioned. The empire grows in 2012 and 2013. Silk Road grew much more in spite of the growing investigation. In addition to drugs, the website now sells hacking tools, phony identification documents, and other illicit digital items. With a small team of administrators assisting in the day-to-day management of the site, Ross's management approach advanced. The strain of running such an enterprise started to become apparent. During this time, Ross's journal entries show a rise in stress and paranoia. He talked on the challenges of leading a double life, creating code in public while covertly running a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. He traveled around a lot in San Francisco, accessing the site's administrative features over public Wi-Fi. Ross was technically sophisticated, yet he made a number of critical mistakes that ultimately brought him to ruin. His initial Silk Road forum posts were sent from personal email addresses. He used traceable locations to get access to the site's administration panel. On his laptop, he maintained notebooks that chronicled the establishment and functioning of the website. Most notably, he had phony identification documents mailed to his San Francisco apartment under his own name. The package, when intercepted by customs, gave investigators a vital physical connection between Silk Road and Ross Ulbricht. When agents were able to track down one of Silk Road's servers in Iceland in 2013, the investigation picked up speed. The contents of the server gave investigators their first glimpse of the administration interface and supplied useful information about the site's activities. Ross was taken into custody by FBI officers at San Francisco's Glen Park Library on October 1, 2013. In order to capture him logged in as an administrator, the operation was meticulously prepared. Before he could shut it down or turn on encryption, several agents confiscated his laptop while others set up a distraction. Administrator logs, private chats, personal journals, and millions of Bitcoin were among the many pieces of evidence found on the laptop. The arrest made news around the world. After years of eluding capture, the enigmatic Dread Pirate Roberts was revealed to be a recent physics graduate with no criminal history. Even seasoned detectives were taken aback by the scope of Silk Road's activities. During its existence, the website handled over $1.2 billion in transactions. The trial of Ross Ulbricht started in January 2015 at a federal court in Manhattan. He was portrayed by the prosecution as a dangerous criminal genius who would do whatever it took to save his empire. Although there were no real executions, they provided evidence that he had ordered several murders to guard the Silk Road. Joshua Drattel led the defense, which contended that although Ross had founded the Silk Road, he had delegated authority to others and had been enticed back to take the fall just prior to his arrest. According to their portrayal, he was an idealistic young man driven more by philosophy than by avarice. However, the evidence was overwhelming. Ross's laptop held everything from his personal journal detailing the establishment and functioning of the Silk Road to his private messages as DPR. The jury convicted him guilty on all 7 counts, including money laundering, computer hacking, and narcotics trafficking, following a brief trial. Ross Ulbricht was given a sentence of double life in prison plus 40 years without the possibility of parole by Judge Catherine Forrest on May 29, 2015. It was a particularly severe penalty, considerably harsher than the prosecutors had suggested. According to Judge Forrest, she wished to make it very evident to anyone who would think about following Ross's example. The harshness of the punishment provoked discussion among proponents of digital rights and in legal circles. Given that Ross had no past criminal history, many contended that it was disproportionate. Many conventional drug kingpins were given lower sentences, as his supporters noted. The Silk Road case had a significant impact on digital privacy, law enforcement, and technology. It illustrated the advantages and disadvantages of fusing cryptocurrency and anonymous networks. While the trial set significant precedents for the seizure of Bitcoin and digital evidence, the investigation compelled law enforcement authorities to create new methods for looking into cybercrime. Over 144,000 Bitcoin coins that were taken from the Silk Road would eventually be valued at billions of dollars. None of the other dark web marketplaces that sprang up to fill the gap left by Silk Road were as large or well known as Silk Road. The website's history includes bringing attention to the difficulties in regulating online trade and hastening the widespread adoption of Bitcoin. Ross Ulbricht's appeals have been exhausted, and he is still incarcerated in a federal facility. His case has become a focal point for supporters of internet freedom, Bitcoin adoption, and drug policy reform. Claiming that his sentence is out of proportion to his actions, a growing movement advocates for clemency. The technology stack used by Silk Road, which included Tor, Bitcoin, and encrypted communications, served as a model for many other online markets. The website showed how these technologies may be combined to create advances in online commerce, both legal and illegal. Additionally, the inquiry sparked improvements in blockchain analysis methods. The field of blockchain forensics grew as a result of new techniques created by law enforcement to track Bitcoin transactions. Since then, many more cybercrime cases have been resolved using these methods. The story of the Silk Road captivated the public's interest and has been the focus of countless books, movies, and podcasts. It symbolizes a singular nexus of ideology, criminality, and technology that never ceases to captivate people. The narrative poses important queries on individual liberty, governmental regulation, and the character of business in the digital era. The case brought to light the conflict between the necessity for law enforcement to look into crimes and privacy-preserving technologies. This argument is still being discussed today in relation to digital privacy rights, encryption, and cryptocurrency regulation. Silk Road's technological ingenuity extended well beyond merely fusing Bitcoin and Tor. Ross made the platform extremely resilient by including a number of security mechanisms. The website used a sophisticated escrow system to hold Bitcoin payments until customers verified that they had received their orders. All parties engaged remained anonymous while fraud was prevented thanks to this technique. Because the platform's server infrastructure was purposefully dispersed around several nations, it was challenging for law authorities to track down and take control of the entire enterprise. Ross kept backup systems that could promptly resume operations in the event that the primary servers were compromised, and he installed dead man's switches that were intended to wipe servers if they weren't routinely authenticated. The Silk Road has a more advanced economic framework than the majority of modern e-commerce sites. The website used a commission-based business model that increased in size as the number of transactions increased. Ross first set costs at 10%, but subsequently introduced a dynamic charge structure that promoted bigger purchases and recurring business. The network handled more than 1.2 million transactions by 2013, earning tens of millions of Bitcoin in commissions. The vendor rating mechanism on the website was quite creative. Silk Road's reputation system had to operate without the ability to verify identification, in contrast to conventional e-commerce platforms. Through successful transactions, suppliers earned reputation scores. Higher-rated vendors were granted access to better commission rates and were able to execute larger orders. Silk Road had a small but committed staff of moderators and administrators working behind the scenes. Customer service, dispute settlement, and site upkeep were handled by these people, who were only identified by their online aliases. The team had a hierarchical structure with varying degrees of authority and access, but they all adhered to stringent anonymity rules. Security and vendor verification were managed by Variety, one of the site's most dependable administrators. Inigo, another administrator, oversaw the forums where members talked about philosophy, security procedures, and merchandise. Some of these administrators made six-figure incomes, and they were paid in Bitcoin. For law enforcement, the Silk Road investigation brought with it previously unheard-of difficulties. Conventional financial tracking was thwarted by Bitcoin's pseudonymous nature, and traditional surveillance techniques were ineffective against Tor's encryption. Agencies were forced to create completely new methods of investigation. A combination of traditional police investigation and high-tech analysis led to the breakthrough. In order to spot trends in the money movement, investigators produced thorough maps of Bitcoin transactions. In order to obtain intelligence about the management, they also gradually ascended the site's user base. Corrupt federal agents were one of the investigation's most contentious elements. During the investigation, two members of the Baltimore Silk Road Task Force, DEA agent Carl Force and Secret Service agent Sean Bridges, were found guilty of stealing Bitcoin. Sean Bridges took about $820,000 in Bitcoin from site traders, while Carl Force tried to extort Ross by selling him information about the inquiry. These dishonest agents made the inquiry more difficult and later played a crucial role in Ross's pleas. Although the courts eventually rejected this claim, his defense team contended that the agents' illegal actions tainted the entire investigation. It is impossible to overestimate the influence of the Silk Road on the evolution of Bitcoin. The website greatly aided in the early adoption of Bitcoin by showcasing its capacity for large-scale anonymous transactions. At current values, the Bitcoin that was taken from Silk Road is worth billions of dollars, making it one of the biggest cryptocurrency forfeitures in history. The way the authorities handled Bitcoin that was seized established significant precedents. Tim Draper, a venture capitalist, bought about 30,000 Bitcoin when some of the coins were put up for auction. Others were still being held by the government, which sparked debates over how law enforcement ought to manage digital assets. Ross Ulbricht and the Silk Road tale perfectly capture the intricate difficulties of the digital age. It shows how technology can enable people to question established power systems, while simultaneously emphasizing the risks to individuals and society of overstepping these bounds. Ross's transformation from a gifted physics student to a digital mogul serves as an example of the thin line that separates creativity from criminal activity in the quickly changing digital world. His narrative offers a warning as well as an early look at the continuous conflicts in the digital era between economic freedom, private privacy, and governmental oversight. The lessons learned from the Silk Road are still applicable today as technology advances and challenges established ideas of trade and government. The case brings up basic issues that grow more significant as we advance into the digital future: freedom, regulation, and the place of technology in society. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, then check out these videos on the screen now. If you have a topic suggestion, please send it to the email in the description. And as always, remember to like, comment, share the video, and subscribe to our channel. I will see you in the next one.